I've always thought of snowy stealth level Cliffhanger as being the best Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 has to offer, but having played the campaign through again recently, now I'm not so sure. Of their own accord, the end of the game's second act is a ridiculously over-the-top affair, but at the same time it's also incredibly entertaining. And since I not long ago gave Takedown, the closing chapter of Modern Warfare 2's first act, so much flack, I thought it only fair that I provide some semblance of balance by talking about a finale in the game I do rather enjoy. Normally here, I would recap the events of Modern Warfare 2 up to the start of their own accord, but since the mission has little story attached to it beyond the obvious headline, Russia has invaded the US, in the process taking control of much of Washington DC, on this occasion we'll jump straight into the action. Or just prior to the action, in fact, as Of Their Own Accord's loading screen is actually worth touching on too. Normally you'd get a fancy briefing regarding the operation you're about to undertake, but not this time. Instead, an emergency broadcast is displayed while a discordant tone plays in the background. It's a lovely touch and a surprisingly chilling way to begin proceedings. Taking control of Private James Ramirez, you explore a bunker of sorts which isn't in great shape. Some work is being done by those able to function, but the area is also filled with the dead or dying, further adding to feelings of unease evoked by the emergency broadcast. Reaching the exit, you're then given your orders by Sergeant Foley.
On your feet, we're Oscar Mike.
Yeah, say again, my Yankee, over.
Listen up. This evac site's getting hit hard. We need to buy him some time.
There's an interesting detail before leaving the bunker too. Looking through this hole in the wall, you can see an American soldier lying dead in a locked room, almost like he was killed after being interrogated. Corporal Dunn is also sitting outside, looking rather despondent. Whether there's any connection, I've no idea, and you're never given any further information, but I've always wondered what the story is there. The scenes that greet you when you head above ground are frankly shocking. Everything burns orange, smoke and ash fills the air, and the sounds of explosions and gunfire are deafening. The level design, or I suppose you could even describe it as direction, is excellent too, with your route laid out so that you cannot miss iconic landmarks such as the Washington Monument, the Capitol Building, and of course the Department of Commerce you'll soon enter, all in various states of ruin. I would go so far as to say that the journey to the Department of Commerce features some of the most arresting visuals in the entire series, if not the genre. There's very close to zero chance of anything like it ever happening, so what you witness is inherently absurd, but assuming you're able to suspend your disbelief, you'll likely remember what you see long past the end of the mission. Hans Zimmer's fantastic track Siege and the bleak radio chatter must also be acknowledged too, as they contribute hugely to the section's amazing atmosphere. Eventually, you make your way inside, and after taking out a large group of enemies holding the entrance, you then need to clear the rest of the building.
Push forward, move!
Overlord, this is 2-1 actual. Be advised, we're inside and proceeding to the upper floor. Roger, Overlord copies all.
You spend much of the next few minutes moving from room to room, taking out any bad guys who stand in your way. It's all fairly standard stuff. The dialogue between Overlord and Foley makes proceedings much more engaging than they would be otherwise though, and they're a big part of why I enjoy Of Their Own Accord so much. As you progress, both men become more frantic as the gravity of the situation really begins to set in, and it does so much to help convey feelings of desperation. While this more traditional FPS gameplay won't be anything you've not seen before and doesn't do anything overly exciting, it's a vital part of the level. Once it's over and done with, Of Their Own Accord goes a little bit bonkers, with a sniping section, a battle against helicopters using a javelin, an escape sequence and a helicopter ride, all following in extremely quick succession. Progressing from the scenes outside the Department of Commerce straight into all of that wouldn't have allowed any time for mood to be properly established. Also, the mission only lasts roughly 10 minutes in total, so things would become very disjointed if those shootouts were removed. Sniping enemies in the distance lit up by your scope, blowing helicopters out of the sky, it all takes place in and above the area you traverse at the beginning of the mission, which lends a real sense of progression to events. It's also simple, undemanding fun too. There's nothing particularly difficult about either, or the race to the rooftops which comes after. Only a single enemy stands in your way, assuming you don't stop moving for too long. Mechanically, little is asked of you, but because you spend only a brief period completing each section, you never really notice. And even if you do, you'll hopefully be so absorbed by the pace and spectacle of everything that you won't mind too much anyway. Reaching the very top of the building, you hop in a chopper and mount its turret.
Overlord, we've linked up with the CEOs on the rooftop and are heading out. Interrogator, has the Washington Monument site been evacuated? Over.
Negative 2-1, they're still pinned down by infantry and light armor from the World War II memorial. Doesn't look good from here. Over.
Copy, Overlord. We'll do what we can from the air. Out.
I've no idea if this was intentional or not, but having played Modern Warfare 3 soon after finishing 2, it was hard not to spot quite a few similarities between Of Their Own Accord and 3's first proper level, Black Tuesday. Of Their Own Accord is set in one of America's most well-known cities under attack, and begins with an on-foot section comprised of your usual Call of Duty combat. You then take out enemies in the distance from a vantage point, blow up a few helicopters, and finally hop in one yourself before flying round while continuing the fight using its turret. Black Tuesday is also set in one of America's most well-known cities under attack, and begins with an on-foot section comprised of your usual Call of Duty combat. You then take out enemies in the distance from a vantage point, albeit using a Predator instead of a sniper rifle, before you blow up a helicopter and finally hop in one yourself before flying round while continuing the fight using its turret. Is there a secret formula for levels set in a US city under attack which is shared amongst Call of Duty's developers? Probably not, but I was surprised at just how closely the pair resemble each other, something I only noticed when working my way through the series again in the present. Of Their Own Accord's own helicopter gunner sequence is pure cinema and a massive step up from that included in the original Modern Warfare. Like much of what comes prior, it doesn't ask a whole lot of you other than to aim roughly in the right direction for its duration, but that simplicity allows you to sit back and enjoy the fireworks as you first clear out the area surrounding the Washington Monument before you lay waste to the Department of Justice nearby. Even if you're a chopper gunner extraordinaire, there's little you can do to stop yourself from eventually crashing, however, with the SAM battery on the building's roof getting the better of you. I personally think the momentary firefight which follows is entirely unnecessary. You are stuck in the helicopter and so can't move, which is frustrating in and of itself, but you also can't do much shooting without Foley throwing you a magazine or two first. I understand the idea behind this interlude. It's the end of Act 2 of Modern Warfare, and so Infinity Ward wanted to conclude things on a cliffhanger, and it again furthers those feelings of anguish so prevalent throughout, but I think fading to black as the helicopter crashed would have been more than enough. In its current form, you stand around for a while occasionally shooting, and that's it. And after all the action you've just been exposed to, it seems a little superfluous, especially given the screen then randomly fades to white to mark the mission's conclusion. It's quite the underwhelming ending, if I do say so myself. Of Their Own Accord is a well-paced affair that is great fun to play thanks to how much it packs into a relatively short runtime. It's the level's atmosphere that stuck with me most after playing it recently though. Remove that from the equation and I think it would be a decent, if not overly exciting slice of Call of Duty action. Combine that haunting mood with the snappy gameplay mentioned however, and what you end up with is an experience that will stick with you for a long time after it ends. Thanks for watching the video, boys, girls and soldiers. If you enjoyed yourself, do consider liking, subscribing and sharing your thoughts, and hopefully I'll see you all again soon.